And here we go again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to BWTM Sports. We are live and exclusive, and we've got a big one, a real big one, associated with a legend in their cruiserweight and heavyweight division, Evander Holyfield, and his new team of Real Deal Boxing. And we've got with us today the COO, I think it's the Chief Operating Officer, Eric Bentley. Eric, are you with us?
I'm with you. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just getting recovered from yesterday.
Okay, we can talk about yesterday in a moment, because I know it was a big show yesterday. Let's talk a little bit about, for those people obviously in the UK that don't quite know what a COO is, explain to me what a COO is.
So I'm the Chief Operating Officer. I am basically in charge of running the day-to-day operations of the company, signing the fighters, hiring the staff, making sure we have shows and everything in order for those events. I oversee the marketing department, the PR department, the matchmaking, the event logistics, the coordination for everything. So it's a fun role.
Okay, let's talk about a little about. So let's get the name of the company right completely, because I may have messed it up. I know it's Real Deal Sports and Entertainment. Am I correct there?
Real Deal Sports Entertainment is our parent company.
Right.
And underneath Real Deal Sports Entertainment, we have several branches that we have in place and that we are currently building right now. So the Real Deal Boxing is our promotional entity for boxing events. That's where our fighters are signed to. Those are the events that we're promoting. That is under the Real Deal Boxing label. We also have the Real Deal medical team. We have the Real Deal production team in development. We have the Real Deal Fight Network in development right now. So there are going to be multiple revenue streams and entities underneath the Real Deal Sports Entertainment umbrella.
Wow. So there's lots of things going on at the moment.
There are just a few.
So let's talk a little bit about your background, how you got involved, your experience, and then how you got into it with Real Deal.
All right, well, just in a more recent past, I've been working with the New York State Athletic Commission for about 7.5 years. I had a brief stint in the middle there working for another promoter as a matchmaker. But when the state called me back to work as the director of boxing, there was an opportunity that I couldn't really pass up. So I spent about 7.5 years on the regulatory side, developing the rules and regulations in New York State. I had nothing to do with that insurance policy, so that has don't put that on me. But other than that, it was just I'm coming from a different side. So health and safety is always at the forefront of any regulatory authority, and we're kind of carrying that over to the Real Deal Sports Entertainment. Prior to working at the Athletic Commission, I also worked for a company called Final Forum, which was owned by Salmo Zamici, who is our CEO of Real Deal Sports Entertainment.
Right.
Back in March of this year, him and Evander had decided to launch the Real Deal Sports Entertainment brand. And from our past experiences together, he reached out to me as if I was interested in working with them. And I mean, who could really say no to working with Evander Holyfield? The man's a legend. He's an amazing human being. He's philanthropic. He's religious. He's just an all-around nice, humble person. So it was the sky's the limit with this company. I don't want to pass it up.
Fantastic. So let's talk about how you and Evander kind of came together. What was that first meeting like?
I was actually a little starstruck. I see fighters all the time, but it's nowadays you don't have guys out there that have reached the level of Evander Holyfield just yet. So there are guys with potential, but then what the man has already done, it's a little overwhelming at first, but he makes it very easy to deal with. He's very receptive. He's very forthcoming. Within seconds of talking to the guy, you're not in awe anymore. You just realize that he's a down-to-earth, great human being. So we sat down. I told him that obviously I was interested in being a part of the company. I told him that I wanted to do things a little differently than the way things are being done right now. He made it clear to me that as long as his name and his reputation remains intact and his reputation is still solid, then he supports what we're doing. He made it clear that what we're doing needs to be about the fighters. He likes the idea of other initiatives. Like Evander's main thing is he wants on the mentor role to these guys. He wants to go to their training camps, to the gyms, and talk with them and share his stories on what he went through and just bestow that knowledge upon the younger generation of fighters. And I can tell you, we've gone to a bunch of gyms since I've been working here, and he takes it very seriously. He's there for hours at a time. And when you see the sparring sessions between these young men and even the young women, when they're sparring, they see Evander in the room. I mean, you can just put the bright lights on them right there and get a camera crew, because it's all out at that point. So it's pretty fun to watch. So that's what he wanted to do. He really wants to focus on, helping the fighters and developing them. And part of the initiative that I had coming from the State Athletic Commission was we had to put an emphasis on health and safety. There is so much going on right now with concussions and CTE and traumatic brain injuries. And my first thought was we actually had to be at the forefront of that, because that's how you separate yourselves. You can't go into something and do the same thing that everyone else is doing and expect the same results, because there have been very many successful events between Mayweather, McGregor, and other mega fights that we've seen. But at the same time, we've also seen fights like Ward and Kovalev, which are one of the best fights that you could have made right now, and the viewership on that was hurting. The sport is going in a different direction. We want to be at the forefront of where it's going. We want to separate ourselves from the pack. So by putting health and safety at the forefront, by working with the fighters and their financing, and setting them up for life beyond boxing, that's kind of where we want to focus, along with competitive fights and entertaining events, obviously.
I'm gonna use this straight away, because you kind of led me into the first major question. A few years ago, I spoke to somebody associated with Mike Tyson Promotions, and they spoke about what was necessary to keep the company going, and then talked about why the company actually folded. What, in your opinion, can be learned from a well-known fighter trying to start a company and it kind of falling flat? What can be learned from that, in your experience, to ensure that Real Deal Promotions or Real Deal Sports Entertainment doesn't fall that way and keeps going 10, 15, 20 years and is still around? What's going to be the sustainability? What's going to make it different to that, what happened with Mike Tyson?
Well, I don't really want to compare what we have to Mike Tyson. It's two separate companies, obviously.
Yeah,
but one thing that I have learned is, obviously, Evander is a very notable figure, and this company wouldn't be what it is without him at the forefront. But at the same time, this company needs to be able to operate as its own company and not depend on Evander and his stature and history to function. We need to have a competent staff. We need to make sure that we put the fans at the forefront, that we put the fighters at the forefront, that people want to be a part of what we're doing, and basically just take Evander's goals and initiatives and emulate what he did as a fighter and what people were drawn to, and bring that to our events. So, whatever happened with the other companies, I can't speak on how they were run from the inside, but what I know is that I need to put something together for this company so that we can stand out, so that we can separate ourselves, so that we can grow organically, and that we can somehow stay at the forefront of where the sport is going. So I think that's the most important part, just making sure that we can be a standalone company and not have to depend on the reputation of one person. I
think that's excellent. You've actually answered my question there, in a sense anyway, because you're basically saying, for the company and the vision of the company, that despite Evander and his greatness as a fighter, the company is just not going to be about Evander Holyfield. And because when Evander Holyfield is no longer in the public limelight as such, then the company can have the same, if it's sustained on that basis alone, then the company has, it's limited. But if it's based on sound principles and sustainability for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, as you're talking here, then not only Evander benefits from it, the workers benefit for it, and the fighters benefit for it from time for now until whenever, which sounds fantastic.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we're looking to do. So.
Okay, so you talk about fighters. Let's talk. Do you talk about some of the fighters that have been brought on into the team so far?
I would love to talk about some of our fighters. We have a stable of fighters right now, and
okay.
I want people to know about who we have signed. So we probably have around 20 to 30 fighters right now.
Okay.
Some of them are on the fringe of contention. Others are right out of the amateurs. But everyone we have, we make it very clear to them that we're here for you. We're here to help them grow. develop in their careers from a boxing standpoint, from an educational standpoint, and from a health and safety standpoint. So before I get into our fighters, a few of the initiatives that we have is, we're working with our fighters to help them learn how to allocate their funds better. Every contract that we send to a fighter actually breaks down and lists out exactly what their total purse is going to be, whether they're going to be taxes deducted. So there's no surprises at the end of the day whether or not their purse should be X number of dollars or Y number of dollars. So I know that's not really being done right now in the sport for the most part. Other things we're doing is we're setting up the fighters with different opportunities from public relations standpoints. We focus a lot on community service. The week of this event, we've gone to Sloan Kettering Children's Hospital. We've gone to New York Presbyterian Children's Hospital, St. Albans Veterans Home, the Boys and Girls Club, Heroes on the Hudson to honor our veterans. So, and the fighters go, Evander goes, everyone has a great time. It's very important for these fighters to be a part of the community, and they all relish that role. At our event yesterday, we had fighters come in from Kentucky and Providence just to go and be able to speak in on our live stream broadcast, because you know what? We have to start on these smaller shows, so when these guys get to the level where they're fighting on the higher echelon events, they need to be able to know, how do you speak at a press conference? How do you speak on the commentary? How do you answer interview questions? So, we're using this platform right now as a way to develop our fighters in the ring and out of the ring. If you watched the show yesterday, you would have noticed Edgar the chosen one Berlanga, 20-year-old kid, now with 5-0, 5 knockouts. How many kids at 20 years old with that 5-0 record are willing to step up and fight another undefeated prospect? Without hesitation, Edgar took the fight. Leading up to the fight, he performed several community service activities, and he won the fight impressively in 42 seconds. He's a very special kid. Devon Lee, you saw a fight yesterday. Devon, in his first 10 fights, fought, I believe, 6 or 7 undefeated opponents. So, again, guys that are willing to fight people. And now, you know what? Devon just beat a kid who has 4 times as many fights as him. And we can position him because he's moving up quickly. We had Toka Khan Clary from Providence, Rhode Island. He's 22-1 as a featherweight. He's had an amazing amateur background. He had probably about 130 to 140 wins and only a handful of losses. He's won countless national titles, been in several tournaments around the world as an amateur. Had one minor setback in his professional career, and now we're fortunate enough to pick him up and work with him. He's going to be a world champion one day. There's no doubt in my mind, and that will be very soon. We have Duke Micah from Ghana, Fabio Turchi from Italy, Sander Martin from Spain. We're really going around the globe to try to find fighters that are willing to fight, willing to step up, fan-friendly for TV, and people that we can be proud to represent our company and Evander's name. A few other prospects that we've signed recently: Josh Temple, a very accredited amateur; Janelson Boca Chica, Justin Biggs, phenomenal amateurs; Marquise Moore. We're working with New Legend Boxing and Kevin O'Sullivan with his stable of fighters, and in that stable is Atlantis Fox, who we co-promote with the Bella Entertainment. We have Kamal Russell with Uprising Promotions yesterday. So we're working with other promoters. We're building our stable of fighters, and we're starting from the ground for some, and we're bringing guys in that are ready to go in there and make some noise right off the bat. So I hope I'm not missing anybody. We actually have 2 female fighters as well. We have Alicia Baumgartner out of Toledo, Ohio. She's 4-0 with 4 knockouts. She had about 160 amateur fights. We have Natalie Gonzalez out of Westchester, New York. She's 3-0 with 1 knockout. She's another very talented fighter that we're happy to work with, and that's basically what we're looking to do. We're looking to take fighters who we can build in their hometowns, who are fighters and who are willing to take on whoever we throw at them.
Wow, I'm excited just listening to them. I'm excited listening to all these names and all these fighters, and I'm thinking interview. That's what I'm thinking. Get to know all these fighters, and you've got to
listen. We'd be happy. We'd be happy to get them on your show, and I'm sure they would too. So
fantastic.
We can do to set that up.
Fantastic. Let's make it happen. Let's do it for the fans. Okay. So I'm excited to hear about the fighters and stuff going. Let's talk about what happened last night. Let's really go into what happened last night, because it was a big thing happened last night for for your organization. So just talk about it.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I was very nervous going to last night's event. There haven't been many shows going on in New York outside of the ones at the Barclays Center and Madison Square Garden because of some insurance regulations that have been a little cost prohibitive from the state. But from our standpoint, you have to be able to make a statement. And New York is always been known as the mecca of boxing. And it all starts from the grassroots portion. The shows at the Barclays and the Garden are great shows, but you need to build fighters to get there. And if you're going to be building fighters in other states, you're going to end up losing the luster of Madison Square Garden and the Barclays Center. So someone's got to step up and take the initiative to bring a local boxing team back. We're willing to do it. We think that with our medical team and our platform, we'll be able to compile enough data to go to the insurance companies and minimize the risk, which would in turn bring down the cost of the insurance. And if that doesn't happen, then we just have to continue to try to promote, put on local fighters, encourage fights that are, cost efficient, where we don't have to fly people in from all over the country, and we just make it tri-state area fights. And this is a huge step for our company because going into yesterday, I didn't know what kind of crowd to expect. I didn't know what kind of turnout there was going to be. And we had over 2,000 people in that casino yesterday, which was a phenomenal turnout for our debut show. We're very pleased with it. We're very pleased with the caliber of fights. We had fighters that were, all taking on difficult challenges. No one really had too easy of a fight, or at least no one went in there thinking they were going to have too easy of a fight, even though there were a few knockouts. But I think up until those knockouts, for the most part, 7 out of 8 of those fights were competitive. So that's really our goal. We really, you can't be 100%, but if we could stay in that 85 to 90% range where you're going to have competitive, entertaining fights that brings the fans to watch it, then our opportunities are only going to increase, and our brand is going to continue to grow.
I believe last night was a charity event. Was I wrong, or a fundraiser?
It was. So $1 out of every online sale is going to go to the American Red Cross to aid the victims of Hurricane Harvey down in Houston, Texas.
Yes.
We haven't gotten those numbers finalized yet, but once we do, whatever the number of purchases there are, we will, donate what we said we're going to donate. And we're going to continue to do that. Every event we want to do is community driven. So whether it be through a charitable donation, whether it be through sending our fighters in a Evander to different community functions, we always want to tie in the community because that's who's going to be supporting the events at the end of the day. So, and that will bring us new fans.
Absolutely. I want to go back to the thing about health, and very, very much. I'm very interested in see, for somebody to make a decision to focus more on the fighter's health. So yes, there's been situations where people fighters unfortunately passed away because of the sport and brain injury and all the rest of it. But what have you seen in your expertise and to make you feel, what, we have to be even more, we have to be up, over and above what everyone else is doing? Give me an example of how this is the standard thing and how you're going to go over and above that, or you are setting a higher standard. Give boxing fans an example, because we don't really hear too much about things like this until something nasty happens.
And that's exactly it. I mean, you don't hear about it until something nasty happens. And to be honest with you, I don't ever want anything nasty to happen on any of our shows. I want them to happen on any show, but if it's something that we can do to prevent it on our end, we're going to do it.
Right.
So luckily, we've come across some amazing partners with Medical Arts Radiology out of Long Island and Dr. Steven Tuzenkevich and his partners. They basically own multiple imaging centers throughout the state of New York. They have partnered with us to not only do advanced imaging pre and post bout on all of our fighters, but we're looking at revolutionizing the health and safety standards in sports medicine, not just ringside medicine. Some of the things that we're working on, which I can't really talk about too much at this point in detail, it is definitely going to be something that takes the medical world by storm, and I hope that will lead to the boxing world. But in terms of how the idea came about, again, I came from the regulatory side, and I've dealt with different commissions, different regulatory authorities throughout the world, and I know the problem that every state commission deals with in terms of the politics that are governing the sport. So, even though you have commissions, the world needs to know that there are people that those commissions report to, and those are really the ones that make these decisions. So, in the state of New York, the commission might be getting a bad rap because of these insurance policies that were passed, but at the end of the day, when you're getting a direct order from the governor's office, you don't really have much of a choice. And that's going on all over the world. So the biggest problem I will tell you in terms of health and safety in the sport of boxing is you don't have an MLB, an NBA, or an overall governing agency to set one set of standards. You can go to New York, you have one set of medical requirements, and then you can go to Kentucky and you have a completely different set of medical requirements. On top of that, you have one set of doctors looking at the fighters, and you go to another state, and there's a complete different set of doctors. So there's no tracking mechanism to monitor the health and safety of these fighters from fight to fight. You have no way of knowing if they're, cognitively impaired, if they're having any neuro damage, because you can go to a state where they don't require an MRI. A guy can go 15, 20, 30 fights his entire career. He may never have an image of his brain done. So the lack of consistency is the first problem with health and safety in the sport of boxing. And every state is limited to what they can do. I get that, but from our standpoint, and with the help of our sponsors, if we're able to make sure every fighter on our cards or under our roster gets a pre-fight set of images, a post-fight set of images, standard care throughout the year, so that our doctors are constantly monitoring their neurocognitive function, making sure that they're not deteriorating in any way whatsoever. These fighters really don't have health coverage in the States, especially. I would say out of our fighters, I'd say 90% of them don't have any kind of health coverage. So, what happens when these guys are sparring, when they're training and they hurt their hand, or they, get knocked down in sparring, God forbid? Who's there to oversee them? So, our doctors are there for whenever our fighters are going to need it. And of course, we need to depend on the trainers and the fighters to be open and honest with us if we're not there to see it. But, the main thing is making sure these guys are getting what they need to get done and staying on top of them, with the same doctors examining them, so we can monitor them throughout their careers.
That all sounds really fantastic. It sounds superb. But does that cost the fighter to have those imaging done and having the doctors nearby?
No, we cover all those costs.
So you cover all those costs. Is that inside the contract that you sign with them? They sign with you that's part of that's just mandatory, or that's just going to happen regardless?
So if we require the fighter to go and get a medical done,
yes,
it's our responsibility to pay for it and to cover that cost.
And if the fighter gets injured in sparring, you cover that as well?
Oh, of course, we would definitely want to be able to take care of that. That's I want to get to the point, to be honest with you, where we have our own training facilities and we can monitor the sparring ourselves and not depending on other people to do it. If we can have set sparring sessions within real deal training facilities that our doctors are there to overlook and make sure that nothing bad happens, that's it might be a pipe dream at this point, but one day we can get there. But anytime a fighter comes to us with any kind of an issue whatsoever, it's our responsibility to make sure that they're covered and they're okay.
Wow, that's really impressive, to be honest. Very, very impressive. What triggered you to want to go down this road for you?
For me, like I said, I'm a father. Well, I didn't say that, but I'm saying I'm a father, and I like to treat people the way I would want people to treat my kids or my wife or my family. And I've been doing this a long enough time now where I've gotten very close with a lot of these fighters, and I've seen them. I've seen careers start and end. While I'm still doing this, and there's just a special place in your heart where you don't want to see anything bad happen to these guys. And having been through some of the situations in New York that they've gone through in the past few years, and seeing the impact that it has on people in their lives, in the last couple of years in the sport, we've seen Magomed and Pritchard Colon and other fighters tragically lose their quality of life. These were good people. These are good people that you don't want to see anything bad happen to anyone else. And if we could be at the forefront again, if the whole thing is we can't come out the gate and do what everyone else is doing. Everyone is depending on building up their fighters to get as fan friendly of a record as they can, so they can sell it to a network. And look, I would love to work with a network, but I can't depend on working with a network. We need to do something to separate ourselves so that fighters are going to want to be a part of what we're doing. The fans are going to want to be a part of what we're doing. And I mean, if we could do things the right way, what harm is there in doing it that way? I'd love people to join us in what we're doing so that we can get more people in a positive manner. So.
Okay, let's talk about other things that affect the world of boxing. Let's talk about weigh-ins. Are you for same-day weigh-ins or the 24-hour weigh-ins?
See, I'm not, and the only reason why I'm not is because I think it's more important for a fighter to be fully hydrated heading into a fight. Now, it's kind of a catch-22 because ideally, yes, if we educated fighters and made sure that they were fighting at the appropriate weight and they weren't completely dehydrating themselves to lose weight, you do a same-day weigh-in because you're minimizing any advantage. But at the same time, these fighters, we haven't educated them yet. Can we get to that point? That's what we're hoping to do. I mean, we're looking to bring health and nutritionists and strength and conditioning coaches to work with our fighters so that we can do a proper body analysis of them to make sure they are fighting at the right weight. We're going to, again, with our partners at Medical Arts Radiology, we're really looking to go and bring as many different ventures to the medical aspect and the health and safety aspects as we can. And that is a long-term goal. But for right now, until we can educate the fighters, you really can't go and make these guys go into that ring dehydrated. I mean, because that's where the most brain injuries are going to happen. So it's kind of a tricky situation right now. I mean, there's really no right or wrong answer until we can figure out the right way to teach the people and the fighters on how to lose the weight and teach the trainers on how to help the fighters lose the weight properly. So
okay. The other thing that's quite a contentious issue is referees and judges, particularly judges. You're watching a great fight and you're thinking, yeah, that's a real cracking fight. It's a great fight. You've gone 12 rounds. You're going, he's definitely won it. It's been a great fight, but he's definitely won it. You go to the scorecards, the other guys won it, and like atrociously won it by a ridiculous amount of scorecards. What are your thoughts on that? Why is this happening, and can it be changed in boxing?
I'm really glad you asked that because the funny thing is, before I left New York, I spent about 8 weeks working with Steve Weisfeld, who, in my opinion, is one of the best judges.
Yes.
In the world. Steve is, I know he's had some time with HBO. He's now back judging fights again. And, every year in New York, we would do a judge seminar where, a little symposium where you have a lead judge come up there, give advice to the other judges on what they do and how they do it, and we would move on from there. But at no point has the ABC or anyone gotten together and said, look, let's standardize the system of scoring. You ask one fighter, how do you know you won the fight? Well, I hit him harder. But if that guy landed 7 clean punches to your 1 hard punch, how do you defer that? You know what I mean? How do you determine who the winner is? So I think it's important that all the governing agencies get together and they standardize a scoring system where you clearly define what determines the winner. What weight are you putting towards clean punching, which in most jurisdictions, clean punching is what's going to win the round for you. Effective aggression, defense, ring generalship, what is their role? How do you determine who the winner is? And there's nothing written out right now. So I think what needs to happen is for all these states to get together and clearly define that so that way the same system is being applied across the world. And on top of that, I don't understand why we're still using 3 judges. I mean, there's no reason why we can't increase the number of judges. If they're getting it wrong with 3, go to 5, go to 7. I mean, there's plenty of room around the ring if we need to, or have a panel that's sitting behind that can, quickly verify whether or not these guys are right or wrong. I mean, there's been no attempt to change what is clearly broken, and that's a problem.
What about headphones for the judges, so they just focus on the fight and not on listening to the crowd cheering?
I've talked to a couple judges about that, and I think for the most part, the sound is a little important because from the sound you can also hear how hard a punch may have hit. Like, judges should be trained to block out the sound of the crowd. Again, I don't know if there's been enough studies done to tell whether or not that can work. I wouldn't say that it can't, but from the judges that I've spoken to, they said that they actually like having the sound because they could hear the the impact of a particular punch, or to hear, the crowd might cheer if they throw something, but for the most part, if the judge is close enough, they can kind of hear the leather hitting the skin.
Okay.
So I don't really have any education on that one. So
okay, another one in terms of judges is the big fight, as you know, is happening soon. Canelo and Triple G, and one of the big contentious issues is that if the fight goes to 12 rounds, Canelo's going to win it. Why have boxing fans become so cynical when it comes to the three judges?
Well, listen, boxing becomes cynical because three judges have time and again, screwed it up. Unfortunately, people don't remember the good scores; they remember the bad ones. Just like any society, when you screw up, everyone knows it. When you do something good, you don't hear about it as much, and that's how news works nowadays, I guess. So, I think the only thing you can really do is just try to make a change. I don't know if that's necessarily the case where if it goes 12 rounds, Canelo's going to win. I think Golovkin is capable of winning a decision if that's the way it goes. But, styles make fights as far as that goes. I'm very intrigued to see that fight. That's going to be a great one, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. Another question. And I was just gonna ask you about the actual safety in the ring. 15 rounds or 12 rounds? Should we extend it, or should we go down to 10 rounds? What do you think?
I think you're going to have a better shot of cutting it down to 10 rounds with all the brain injuries going on right now. So I have no desire to see 15 rounds again. If you talk to Evander, he'll tell you about his fight with Dwight Montgomery, how he lost 15 to 18 pounds in that fight. So I don't need to see any of our fighters going that long. It's just it's a dangerous sport to begin with, and you can have a good enough fight watching it for 12 rounds that you don't have to go for 15.
Yeah, but the old school fighters will say the championship rounds from 12 to 15. Those were the real tough testing rounds, and none of the guys today would do 15 rounds. That's what the old guys would say.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's what they were brought up on. And who knows? By the time my kids are growing up, they'll call 8 to 10 the championship rounds. So I guess it's a generational thing at that point.
Okay, all right. So moving forward, we've talked about when's the next event you guys have got?
We're doing September 28th at the Crown Plaza in Louisville,
okay,
right by the airport there.
Right.
It's a beautiful venue.
Okay.
It's a nice size, and we're going to have a very nice event.
Okay. Any other news? Fights, or?
Sure. We have Toka Clary taking on Braulio Rodriguez for the WBC Continental Americas featherweight title.
Okay.
Toka is 22-1, taking on Braulio, who is 19-2 with 17 knockouts. He's a pretty big puncher. Toka wanted this fight because he wanted to prove that his one loss was a fluke and that he does not have a questionable chin.
Okay.
The co-feature is another great fight. It's going to be an international bout between Duke Micah from Ghana, who's 20-0 with 18 knockouts. Very exciting kid, very charismatic kid. I think the world is going to love him. He's taking on Mario Diaz from Mexico, who's 16-1, 14-fight winning streak. He's a very talented fighter as well. That'll be for Duke's WBC international title.
Okay.
We also have Washington, D.C.'s Joshua Davis, who is signed to Real Deal. He's 11-1, taking on Ray Lampkin, a 10-0 prospect out of I think he's from Oregon, but he now lives in Florida. But he's got family in Kentucky, so he's a bit of a nomad. So he's a very interesting kid. He's actually a funny dude. I think you'll enjoy talking to him.
Okay.
And actually, what might be the best fight on the card is we have Joshua Temple, who's 4-0, 4 knockouts, cruiserweight prospect. Evander loves Josh. He sees a ton of potential in him. He's actually stepping up, and he's fighting another 5-0 prospect, Brian Daniels, out of Massachusetts. It's a 6-rounder. Again, I love seeing kids take these kind of fights and taking chances. They're both confident in their abilities. They both understand that you need to win fights like this to see where you are, because again, this is a dangerous sport, and you're better off learning whether or not you're able to stick it out. And if you lose, it's not the end of the world as far as we're concerned. Evander had 10 losses. If he didn't have 10 losses, he wouldn't have been the 4-time heavyweight champ of the world. So we want to encourage these guys that you can take these kind of risks, just to see where you are and what you need to work on. Also on that card, we're going to have 3 of our prospects, Janelson Bocachica, who's 7-0 out of Detroit, Michigan. the pro debut of Justin Biggs, who was the 165-pound champion, the Golden Gloves in New York this year, making his pro debut on that card. And Louisville's own Carlos Dixon, who is another future superstar, if you ask me. He's 20 years old. He was number 5 amateur in the 132-pound division. Good-looking kid, well-spoken, charismatic, and he has a tremendous following down in Louisville. So we're really excited to bring this event down there.
Let's get all those guys you've mentioned on the channel. Let's get them profiled. Let's get them out there. Let's build their profile over on BWTM Sports.
Hey, look, you give me a call. You set up some times, and I'll get all these guys on that show. I want to expose them to the world. So this is part of their development. They need to do these interviews. They need to learn how to speak to a massive audience, and I think your platform is a great way for us to do that. So I'm happy to work with you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Would also love to bring a couple of our events over to the UK. So if you guys have any interest in that, I'll need a little help finding the right venue and the right people to work with. But we're very interested in expanding internationally. So
I think we could talk. I think we definitely could talk.
Cool, sounds good.
So Eric, finally, how do people get in touch with Real Deal Boxing?
Our website is www.therealdealboxing.com, and there's a "the" before "real," so it's therealdealboxing.com. We're on every social media outlet, from Facebook to Twitter to Instagram at The Real Deal Boxing. And you can also email us, info@therealdealboxing.com.
Fantastic. And one day we would love the honor of talking to the man himself, Evander Real Deal Holyfield.
I think we can make that happen.
That sounds fantastic. Eric Bentley, thank you so much for talking to BWTM Sports and giving us this exclusive.
Thank you for taking the time, and we really appreciate your support.
Thank you so much, Eric. Take care.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So there you have it, another exclusive. You've heard it there from the Real Deal Boxing. Eric Bentley, the Chief Operating Officer. He's the man who does the day-to-day for the Real Deal Boxing and Real Deal Sports and Entertainment. We're excited to be working alongside them, and I think this is groundbreaking for BWTM Sports to have all those fighters coming through our channels and to talk to them. We've got some exciting times ahead. That's it for now for us. We'll be back again in less than 15 minutes. At 8:30, we'll be talking to Glyn Rhodes. Back in the UK, we'll be talking to Glyn Rhodes about the big one in Sheffield, Sheedy versus Cameron. Don't go away.